DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Well, what a pleasure this is. We warmly welcome onto the podcast and the show for the first time Morgan Turinui, former Wallaby, and you see him on Stan Sports rugby coverage. We met at World Cup last year. Welcome back, mate.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
Well, I was firmly on that Wallabies Grand Slam train, like I think most rugby fans, neutrals around the world were. I mean, it was such a thrilling story, and the first two tests were won, but it all came a gutser up against Scotland. What went wrong?
Well, what a world when even you're supporting the Wallabies these days. Jeez, it must be in trouble, hey? Truthfully, I think Scotland are a better side than the Wallabies consistently. This was a little bit like a tour that we probably didn't think we'd get past England at Twickenham. And then once that happened, we sort of opened up. And as the Grand Slam evolved, it looked like the teams were going to get better and better right through to Scotland, then on another step up this week. I just think, especially by the end of it, Wallabies, some rotation. Joe Schmidt still looking at players to see whether he wants to see that they're part of the Lions. I don't think he's gone all in on a Grand Slam or bust. We can see the development there. We've seen some brave selection decisions right throughout the Grand Slam tour. So I think in the context that it wasn't probably the absolute A team of the Wallabies, especially with some forced illness, the end of a long season, which I'm sure All Blacks fans will have seen with their own team. So lots of things in there, notwithstanding the fact that I think Scotland is a slightly better team as the ranking suggests and did play exceptionally well.
So what do you take out from it now? Because what does the Ireland test become? I mean, that's a major opponent. If it had been the final of this Grand Slam, it would have actually added so much more to it. So let's look at that first.
Well, it would have been a great week. I wasn't that happy because I was on a plane to Dublin. If the exam was on, that would have been a bit of fun. Look, I think this is a huge opportunity for the Wallabies to put up in bold and underline the fact that how much improvement's been made this year. Ireland would be the biggest win of the year for sure. Haven't beaten Ireland since 2018. Of course, Australia doesn't play them, a little bit like New Zealand, doesn't play them at home very much, play them a lot in those November series. And we know how hard it is to win in Dublin. But I think a win would just show the development under Joe Schmidt. The top four teams in the world, probably five teams in the world, are that little bit of distance away from where the Wallabies are at. But the ability to go to Dublin, beat them, would show how much work the Wallabies have done in improving.
So where are you right now? Are you a better side than you were when we finished the World Cup last year? And if so, how? Well,
I think we're a better side probably in July than the end of the World Cup. The end of the World Cup was the absolute, rock bottom we'd hoped it would be. Poor selection, poor environment, everything came together. One, you're never as bad as you think you are, and you're never as good as you think you are, I suppose. But I think what Joe Schmidt has done is incrementally improve this team. I've seen him put a lot of breakdown work, a lot of basic skill work into our team, and that group of Wallabies, catch pass, groundwork in ball presentation, contact skills, especially in their breakdown work. And also, I think, if you've watched a lot of the Wallabies play, you'll see some of the Joe Schmidt fingerprints around the way they attack, around the way he demands that his wingers are working off the ball. So you can see that there's a coherent plan to, one, give a lot of experience. The Wallabies, if Tane Edmed, as is rumoured, comes off the bench for the Wallabies this weekend, he'll be the 19th Test debutant this year. So the most we've had since in 100 years, really. And 100 years ago, it was our first tour off the back of a world war, and then one where the Waratahs had already toured and they didn't tour. So it's lots of new guys, all those sorts of things. So I think that is where we see the improvement, more international experience, but also a coherent and incremental improvement in our team.
So you can definitely see what Joe Schmidt is bringing and what he's trying to do. How much time does he get to do this?
Well, I think everything about Australian rugby at the moment is this Lions series, which is 8 months away now, and I think he'll get two more tests. He'll get Ireland, and I would have thought the Wallabies would play one warm-up test, I suppose you'd call it, before the Lions series. So he doesn't have much time. Lots of the time he had, he's used up. How much time he'll get to bring Wallaby groups of players together during next year's Super Rugby will be interesting as well. So time is definitely running out in terms of hands-on effect he can have with his team. The great thing I think he's done is, as I mentioned, lots of people have been in this Wallabies environment, have got a taste of it. They need to take all of those things back and show them during Super Rugby.
Morgan, I don't know whether it's important or not, but what we'd learned over the first 2 weeks of that Grand Slam was just that all of a sudden rugby had just felt like it had awoken again in Australia. It was on the back page of the sports news. People were talking about it. People were jumping the bandwagon again. How important is that? And also, is that something that you've actually noticed, recognised as well?
Oh, huge amount. I noticed it in the sort of the radio interviews and demands I get
Great.
after a Wallabies win. I was doing radio interviews in Perth and Adelaide, and you only normally do those when the Wallabies have a big win or something really bad happens.
Bad happens,
It was good that it was a good thing, or it was a bit like the World Cup days where everything was interesting. It just shows that there is just under the surface still that love for Australian national teams, that care for the Wallabies. Lots of my mates who would come and watch the Waratahs with 35,000 other people in the mid-2000s have maybe drifted to AFL, gone to watch a lot more rugby league, and they were back talking about the Wallabies. And, we've seen other codes were worried about the Wallabies being talked about, worried about the media coverage of the Wallabies. Look, it's not a false dawn, but it's just a little hint of what it could be. There's so much work to do. We're still not as good as you guys. We're still way off the box. And Ireland are a better team than us, whether we beat them or not this weekend. We still have a lot of work to do to be a consistent winning Wallabies team. But the great thing is that what has been shown and reminded to lots of people in Australia is if the Wallabies win, if they play like a team we can be proud of, the support is still there.
Look, one of the things when we're sitting together, we were actually together, people on the couch in Wellington at the Puniki Club before the Bledisloe Cup test. And I asked you then, and I want to repeat that question, how important is it to rekindle a Wallabies kind of style of playing rugby? Because when we go back to 84, the Grand Slam, I mean, there was a way. And then when we had Larkham and Gregan and these guys, there was a way of playing. I kind of get that Joe Schmidt's on that ride as well, that he wants the Wallabies to have their own style, own identity, the way that is that airy fair, or is that actually something concrete?
Well, yeah, there's the mythology of it all, isn't there? That Grand Slam team in 84 with a few guys, obviously from Randwick and most centrally of it, Mark Ella, with the way he wanted to play the game. And then you look at 91 and 99, 91, a lot of players from the same club in Sydney, then 99, that Queensland influence of quality. So there is always that little bits and pieces of cohesion that come through. In terms of an Australian style, I think, because we don't have the player numbers, we don't have the huge amount of professional clubs, there's got to be a point of difference somewhere. At one stage, it was that I think Australia probably, especially in 99, developed a very structured, excellent defence very quickly and probably adapted to professionalism quicker than most places, probably because rugby league had already done it for so long in Australia. So we just need to remember what our points of difference are. If we're going to innovate, well, then what suits our players? I think what Joe Schmidt has done is he's making sure that we're brilliant at the basics. And from there, it doesn't really matter what you do. You find a way to play to your strength. That's what I like about what Joe Schmidt brings. And they talk about fundamentals a lot within the Wallabies. And that's what I think is being pushed through the work that Joe Schmidt's done. Because one thing about Australia at the moment is that lots of our young players are pushed through early. One, because we have to sign them to ward off other nations of rugby, but also rugby league. Mm-hmm. So these kids are coming in, they're not the finished product, which is why I think maybe Joe Schmidt is the right coach at the right time. So a guy that can make our young footballers more experienced, better, rounded players. In terms of the style the Wallabies play, kind of winning style. I think that's all we care about these days.
Yeah. A guy like Joseph Suaalii, just instant star power, instant pulling power. It's like Joey Manu going up to Japan, and we're very keen to get our hands on him, obviously. How important is it to keep guys like that, to get them, to keep them, and also just what impact that they can have, eyes on the prize?
Well, it's the great challenge in Australia. We have lots of kids play rugby league and rugby union all the way through at the same time. They make rep teams in both sides. And what rugby league do is they have lots more clubs, a significant more amount of money. They have leagues, clubs with poker machine money and things like that, which fund great rep programs. So they can offer a lot more earlier to young rugby league players than rugby can. Rugby doesn't have the money to splash and go, well, mate, I'll give you 150 grand, I'll give you 50, you 50, you 50, and one of you will hopefully turn into Joseph Suaalii. Rugby Australia and Australian rugby have to have a bit more focused talent identification and got to be a little bit lucky with that too. It's hard to know which 16-year-old kid is going to be the gun. The exception is Joseph Suaalii, who was always going to be the gun. What we've done is find a proposition that excites him. I've loved the chat around him caring about playing for the Wallabies, loving the experience, the internationality of our game. That's the point of difference, right? Rugby league is this, and AFL is this amazing national, tribal, domestic competition. Rugby is the international game. We offer something very different. We probably just have to show the value that we can add that is different to rugby league, while knowing that we don't have the money and we don't have the amount of clubs, an opportunity for some young players coming through.
Let's get you out on this. Super Rugby then, 5 teams goes into 4 teams. What are you expecting? What are you wanting? And how much stronger can can we expect those 4 Australian sides to be when that kicks off? And it's only a couple of months away, mate.
Yeah, I think the big winners, of course, are the Waratahs and possibly to a lesser degree the Western Force. The Brumbies, they're a very settled, smart talent list, so they didn't need many players, and they've picked up 1 or 2. The Reds are probably the on the up team under an excellent head coach, Les Kiss. But the Waratahs, it's just an amazing chance for a Waratahs team that were at a really low ebb. They get this influx of talent. They get Dan McKellar coming back unexpectedly from overseas. They're the ones to watch. I expect the Reds to be better again. I expect the Brumbies to be the Brumbies as always. I can see the Force being better with a little bit more depth. They might last a bit longer in games, but the Waratahs are the ones to watch. And while we have a really nationalistic view of the game here, a strong Waratahs in a big Sydney market is also very important for the game. They need to make improvements quickly, and they should do with the talent on offer.
Final question. I know I did say I have final question, but I've got to ask you before we go there. The All Blacks, just a quick overview on where you think we're at, given where we were at in the final of the Rugby World Cup last year.
Well, you probably should have won the Rugby World Cup final, so that's the context to be in.
Yeah.
If it's 15-15, you probably win that game, don't you? So I think you and I discussed it, and Wayne Smith was there. We discussed it on stage and then around the dinner table. I'm a little bit jealous and worried as a Wallaby supporter, but I have such high expectations of where this All Blacks team should go.
Yeah.
I've seen exactly what I think Scott Robertson is trying to do, evolve the way the All Blacks play, the intention to offload, to attack, to find new ways to unpick defences, to bring speed back into the game. I love the fact that the All Blacks are once again not almost going, oh, well, we have to go and play a bit like the Springboks. We have to play like the French to copy them, to beat them consistently. I love the brand of rugby that Scott Robertson is putting in place with this All Blacks team. I can see the All Blacks being the big improvers in the next couple of years. I can see the All Blacks being the favourites going into the 2027 Rugby World Cup with the age bracket, the age profile, what Scott Robertson can bring. If I'm anyone in the world of rugby, I'm scared of where the All Blacks are going.
DSPN.